Welcome to the first episode of the Marketing Manifest Podcast Season 2, where I'm going to bring you the top marketers and e-commerce business owners with their latest insights and strategies that can help you grow your e-commerce business. Have you ever wondered why some websites convert better than the others? Or have you ever thought about how you can optimize your website to drive more revenue? Well, don't worry, I've got you covered. In this episode, we have Rishi Rawat, who is a hyper-focused expert in optimizing Shopify product pages and helps in increasing your website's conversion rate. Rishi is currently based in the United States and has helped more than 100 plus e-commerce businesses worldwide to increase their revenue and drive growth through effective CRO strategies. If you are a marketer or a business owner looking to improve your website's conversion rate and drive greater revenue growth, then this episode is just for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show as we have a chat with Rishi Rawat. Perfect. So finally, the show is on, and I'm so excited to have Rishi Rawat, a CR expert whom I've known for quite some time and has been doing an amazing job. It's a pleasure to have you here, Rishi, and thank you for accepting my invite to be here on the Marketing Manifest podcast.
Emil, it's a pleasure to be here. I love talking to marketers. I love talking about what I do and what we do. So thank you for having me.
Great, awesome. So, Rishi, in today's episode, right, I wanted to mainly focus on how do you actually do conversion rate optimization? That's your expertise that you've been working for like 13 to 15 years. Your total expertise you have put into the conversion optimization, and I feel with respect to both the Indian market and the international market, I see a lot of brands, the e-commerce brands, are not focusing much on the conversion rate optimization and also don't know what's the value that the CRO can provide and the importance of it. So, to start with, can you let me know, like on a layman terms, what exactly is CRO? What is the basic, and how does it work?
Yep. So in very simple terms, the purpose of CRO, at least as I look at it, is a way to convert attention into transactions.
Mhm.
So you have invented a product or you have a product that solves a problem. It has some attention around it. If you don't have attention, then there's no CRO. So this is what the product has to do. It has to create attention. And once you have attention, then the job of the conversion optimizer is to convert that into transactions. So in very simple terms, that is what CRO is all about. I look at CRO as being closer to sales than it is to technology or to marketing or to copywriting. It is really principally about sales. And all of these, CROs are broad terms. So there's a lot of different functions that come in. There are people who are UI UX experts that also do CRO. There are people that are copywriters that also do CRO. There are technologists who also are involved in CRO. For example, sometimes a website might say that we have a two-step checkout process. We want to create a seamless mobile checkout process, and we want to add payment gateways and all of that. This is being done for purposes of conversion, reducing friction. But it's actually being managed by a technology team. So in that respect, the technology team is doing the CRO. So, but in very simple terms, the purpose is to convert attention into transactions.
Got it. So you mentioned, right? So eventually the CRO is basically done to increase the revenue or the sales part. Like I see, like if you normally go to the Shopify analytics, like in the backend, there is a particular tab which says conversion rate, and you see a certain percentage over there. And under that percentage, you'll be able to see a small funnel which says that how many people have reached the checkout and how many people have reached the add to cart and how many people have converted, right? So this is how a usual, and I assume a lot of marketers and PR experts basically put a lot of effort on that to see how we can increase that funnel. How do I convert? So I've seen a lot of stores where they get around in a month, they get around 70 to 75,000 people sessions on their store. And eventually when you look at their number of orders, it will be just 1,000 orders or 1,200 orders, for example, right?
So what do you think can be a better way to convert that funnel, and how do you think it can benefit a D2C brand or an e-commerce brand to increase their how do I put it, like increase their revenue and also drive growth for their brand? How does that entire funnel look like? And as a CRO expert, what do you think are the right measures that needs to be taken care of?
It's a very good question. And I think the challenge is that marketers are trying to improve everything.
Mhm.
And this is the first fundamental flaw that we make, because you cannot possibly improve everything. And we have this term that we use called tips of the spear. So,
Mhm.
yes, your funnel is a thing. And yes, there are many moving parts of an e commerce website, but not everything is equally important. And it's very, very important for the marketer to zero in on the tips of the spear. Because if you don't, you will find every day your attention is getting divided across 20 different practices that are
Mhm.
not really having a cohesive, measurable output. Remember, at the end of the day, it's all about having measurable output.
Mhm.
If you're trying to improve the entire funnel, it's too little to actually be able to measure, triangulate that effort with a total output of higher conversion rates. But if you identify a tip of the spear, then you can really triple down on that. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of this is management's fault, because CEOs and founders are of this opinion that everything is important. And so
Mhm.
they tell their team that I don't care that you are thinking that this one thing matters, but everything is important. I think teams need to have the backbone to say, no, we're going to bet on this idea, and we're
Mhm.
going to prove or disprove through data if working on that idea made a difference. So your tip of the spear could be the top of the funnel. That's possible
Mhm.
for a certain brand, that their tip of the spear is the top of the funnel. It could also be your checkout flow. So it could be anything. I'm not going to tell you what it needs to be. What I can tell you is that over the last 13 years, having worked with over 400 different e-commerce businesses in the US, I can tell you that one of the most important areas, one of the most important tips of the spear for an e-commerce website is the product page. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is because typically the way advertising is structured is you have an ad, and that ad doesn't link to your homepage. It used to, 10 years ago, that's what brands would do. They would link to the homepage or the category page. Today, if I'm selling a pair of running shoes and I have an ad for running shoes, that ad directly connects to my product page.
Mhm.
And what that means, this is a very important distinction, because previously what would happen is that marketers would be of the opinion that, okay, someone comes to my website, they can then go to the home page, they can then go to my about us page to learn who we are. But actually, this is not what happens. What happens is that the user sees your ad, they either interact or they don't interact with the ad. If they interact with the ad, they directly come to the product page. And then on the product page itself, they are making a mental calculation about, should I invest my attention with this brand? And
Mhm.
if they conclude that your brand does not deserve attention, they actually leave the website from the product page itself. So as far as they're concerned, your entire website is one product page. They are not going anywhere else on your website. And so this meant, I think, recognizing this reality is going to really open up ideas in the mind of the marketer. Because I think if you continue believing that people come to my website, then they go to my homepage, then they go to my about us page, then they kind of look to see what products I have. This is not what people are doing. They're
Mhm.
coming, they're making an opinion, and they're leaving the website from that one page itself. So to me, having looked at data for 400 e-commerce websites, it's very clear that especially when it comes to paid traffic, the tip
Mhm.
of the spear has got to be your product page. And
Mhm.
so
Got it. Got it. Awesome. I think that was really a good insight. So, right now, so I recently read one of your LinkedIn posts where you had written about a leather shoe brand, where you had mentioned like the cost was too high, but there was this one sentence that kind of hooked the customer, where they take around 26 weeks, if I'm not wrong, to create that particular stitch, right?
yes,
So, how do
yes.
you, so what is your suggestion when it comes to, so be it any be it like a brand new e-commerce store, or let's say if there is a store who's doing more than 1 million or 2 million per month. I'm just giving you a rough idea. what do you think, or how do you think a particular product page should look like? What are the major elements? Like as a CRO expert, what do you think a particular product page should consider? So so there is this a product headline, you have trust badges, you have a lot of different things. But what do you think are the most core element which a lot of marketers miss out on, or a lot of e-commerce brand owners miss out on? I think this is where a
That's
lot of people make mistake. That's something that I wanted
I,
to know
I
from you.
I totally agree. And I can talk about lots and lots of data around this because we have done we've done research around this topic. My clients have invested millions of dollars on this type of research. And one of the things that CEOs get really surprised about, but it's also very obvious, is that when they do surveys on their customers and they ask their customers that, why did you not buy from me? The number one thing that people say is price. It's always price, right? And I think marketers have made a mistake because they have taken the wrong conclusion. So what I mean by this is when the CEO says, we've done this very extensive research and we've talked to our customers about why they didn't buy from us, and they said price is a problem. Marketing comes back and says, boss, I have a solution for us. The solution is, let's do promos. And let's make the person feel like there is a 20% discount, then we can get them to buy. Now, this to me is a stupid idea for two reasons. Number one is you are training people to expect discounts. And number two is that you are not really understanding what their objection was. The thing that you have to understand is that when someone is buying something, 99% of time when consumers are buying something, unless if they're buying a commodity, they're actually buying it for the first time. So if I'm buying a pair of headphones, I'm not buying headphones every month or every couple of weeks for me to know what a range of prices are for headphones. People don't have a perception of what price should be. Price is a very abstract concept. It's just a mathematical number, right?
Yeah.
When you say $29.99 for a pair of running shoes, what does that mean, right? And unless if the buyer is buying running shoes for a long time, they don't have a point of reference. This is why we have principles known as price anchoring. So there is a technique in marketing where what you do is when someone first comes to the website, you actually show a higher priced item to them, and then you show a lower priced item. And what that does is it allows the consumer to have a compare and contrast. What the consumer is looking for is a way to compare. Now, the thing is that if you are listing a pair of running shoes for $29.99, the way for the consumer to compare is to actually leave your website and look at other websites, do another search on Google for running shoes. The problem with that game is that you can't control it. Someone somewhere is going to be selling a pair of running shoes for $14, and that is going to artificially hurt your conversion rates. Now, of course, what the consumer doesn't understand is that a $14 shoe, you always get what you pay for, right? It could be a very crappy pair of shoe. But if the consumer has nothing to go by, then price point is what they go by. So when the customer is saying that your prices are high, what they are really saying is, I don't see the reason or justification for me to spend this kind of money. That is what they're really saying. And so the marketer's number one job is to justify price. So on the product page, if you are not justifying price, you are screwed. You're going to, it is the race to the bottom, because that is when you start saying things like, my industry average conversion rate is 2%, so I need to be above industry average. These kind of conversations only happen when you don't really understand your job is to persuade. And so price justification, you talked about what are the elements on the product page. I would say price justification is something we always do. And we can have a subsequent conversation about all the ways in which price justification can be done. I would give the simplest explanation is that on a piece of paper, write down whatever your price is, write down why the hell someone should spend this kind of money on your shoe or whatever you're selling, and see what comes out. And then what you do is you figure out a way to kind of incorporate that on the page. The way we like to do it is we actually right next to the price point. See, one of the things you're trying to do is you must try and resolve the problem at the point where the problem was arrived in the first place, right? So when the person has anxiety about price, when they're looking at a price tag, so that right next to that, to the right of that, I would typically put a call to action or a button or a link or whatever you want to call it that says quality matters or why so much or whatever it is, right? And the idea here is that someone who's seeing the price point and saying this is too much money is going to notice that. And then they'll want to interact with it. And now you can show them a sales pitch, a pop-up or whatever it is that explains, going back to that example I gave you for the shoe, where they took 26 weeks to kind of learn the art of stitching. That when the consumer reads those kind of things, now they have a reference point for value, because everyone knows what 26 weeks of practice means, right? We all, no matter what industry you're in, time is something human beings understand. 100%. So suddenly when I read that you took 26 weeks to understand even how to stitch, which is just one of the components of the shoe, suddenly I start feeling like, okay, boss, this is like a lot of effort. Suddenly now your $29.99 price point or whatever, $150 price point, doesn't matter, seems a little cheaper. Your job as a marketer is to systematically keep on making it feel cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper till it gets to a threshold where the consumer says, boss, this is a great deal, right? So the higher the price point, the more you have to work to systematically chip away at those things so that the value keeps on, the price perception of the price keeps on coming down. So to me, price justification is a critical component on the product page. But I'll mention a few more. The second one is demonstration of expertise. This is a very important thing. So we are living in a very specialized world. What used to happen 20 years ago was when a brand needed marketing, they would look in the yellow pages and they would say, okay, let me find a firm that has the word marketing in it. If it is a marketing agency, they'll say, okay, I'll call you. And they would call and say, boss, we have like marketing problem. Can you help us? They'll say, oh yeah, tell us what you want. And companies would have very broad expertise. So they would say, oh, we do catalogs, we do prints for you, we'll do billboards for you, we will cold call, we will do direct email, we'll do all of these things, right? Today, the world is very different. We are living in a hyper specialized world. In fact, within the world of marketing, there are 2,000 specializations. There is a company out there that only does Facebook advertising for natural supplement brands. That's their niche, right? There's another brand out there that does direct mail for a carpet cleaning vertical. That means if you are a carpet cleaning company, they have mastered how to do direct mail to get customers. So in a world where customers have now gotten used to hyper specialization, Procter and Gamble, or in India we have Unilever and these brands are now dying out because back then, at one point people wanted. Trust was a very difficult thing for brands to earn. So once you earn trust, you said, okay, let me sell toothpaste, let me sell shampoo, let me sell soap. But today, the thing that people want is specialization. The thing about brands like Unilever and Procter and Gamble is that they are generally very good at mass producing products. But consumers today don't want to buy a soap. They want to buy a soap that is designed to solve their skin problems. If they have dry skin of a very specific kind, they're not interested in buying soap that also can be used by someone who doesn't have a dry skin issue. They want a specialized product. Now it becomes very hard for the world of Procter and Gamble's to specialize that way because their mindset is mass marketing, right? So my point is that the consumer is expecting uber specialization, and price justification is one part of your story, but the other part of it is you kind of proving to them that you are a world expert at solving that kind of problem. And so demonstration of expertise is the second component that is critically important on product pages. The third thing is, I would say the last thing I want to add over here is point of view. So the point is, point of view is a very important principle. It's very applicable in politics. In the US, and I'm sure this is the same in India, same in every part of the world, we have political parties. What is a political party? A political party is the embodiment of an ideal. And people that are voting for the Congress party or people that are voting for Republicans or Democrats in the US, they are basically saying that I believe in this point of view. I believe in this ideal. And I'm going to support this ideal. So another technique that marketers should use, which is very effective, is to have a point of view. Maybe your point of view is the fact that we believe that a lot of care must go into making products. That is something that even if, let's say I'm selling shoes, again, I'm using the shoes example as a proxy, but if I'm selling a pair of shoes and I'm selling a pair of shoes that are designed for running, if I can communicate to the buyer that I care deeply about the health benefits of running, and I care deeply about products that simply work really well. That is a point of view. That is a point. That is a philosophical point of view. And people that believe in that, even if they are not in the business of making running shoes, we can relate to it, right? If I'm talking to you and I'm saying, Emil, I really, really care about taking good care of customers. Even if you are not a business person, you can appreciate that. And so you will acknowledge, you will relate to that point of view. And then ultimately, it's important to understand that every time a customer spends money, what they are really doing is they're casting a vote. Paying for something is you using dollars to cast a vote. When I buy a pair of Nike shoes for $70, I'm using money to cast 70 votes on behalf of Nike, because I'm saying I believe in what they stand for. So the point of view thing is also a very important concept.
Awesome. I think that was I think that was a very detailed explanation on how exactly you need to build your entire page. I think you started with that, and then you went into the different concepts of like personalization. And I completely agree with the way you need to care, you need to give that enough care to a customer, right? Because I feel in the online world, nobody is being able to maybe feel or touch the product. And again, customer experience plays a really great role when it comes to e-commerce marketing. If you're not able to provide a really good customer experience, or if you're not able to care the customer, eventually they're not going to be a loyal customers forever. And the second thing, you spoke about personalization, and I think personalization is indeed a really very important element when it comes to e-commerce marketing, because see, there are a lot of definitely indeed there are a lot of brands, but in order for you to stand out, like how exactly you spoke about the soap example, right? There are people who are looking to buy very personalized soap, or they don't want to buy a normal soap nowadays, but rather they want to buy a specialized soap, which maybe it could solve uh, their personal skincare problem. And that's where I feel uh, personalization definitely comes into play, and I think that's going to be a really good. It's good. It's having a better future for I kind of realize when working with a lot of e-commerce brands. And so one question that I wanted to ask is that, so you mentioned that these are the things that you need to do when it comes to creating a product page for an e-commerce brand. But as you have worked with like almost like 400 brands, both internationally and in India. Okay, what do you think are the most common pitfalls that businesses should be aware of when trying to optimize their conversion? Because as I mentioned, like there are a lot of business owners who feel that there is some issue with the funnel, or there is some issue with the ad. This is what they feel, but it could definitely be the product is not maybe compelling to the audience, or the audience that they're targeting is completely wrong. And there is also one of your blog where you talk about healthy skeptics. Okay, that was a
Yeah.
very interesting term that I came across. And when I went through that particular content, you basically said like there are like three type of different audiences. But that's the third audience is exactly your actual potential target, whom you need to give some amount of a nudge to get them converted. So I wanted to like maybe explain what exactly is healthy skeptics, because I'm sure like not many people in the e-commerce industry are aware about that particular term. And I also want you to like maybe share some put a limelight over there, and talk about that 1% audience that you were talking about, and why is it important for
Yeah.
every single brand?
Yeah. So I think again, I think all problems essentially come from, I totally understand that the C-suite has the best of intentions. They're trying to make a lot of progress. They're trying to, they have threats with competitors. There's a lot of pressure at the C level, CEO level, CFO level. And so it's natural for them to feel a sense of impatience and want to marketing to actually quickly start solving problems. So I think if you have a conversion rate of 3% or 4%, it's very natural for the CEO to say, guys, come on, man, what is happening with the remaining 97%? And marketing typically freaks out when CEO comes into the office or into the room, and they start saying, okay, how do we kind of go after all of these people? And I'm here to tell you that I've already done that, and it's a horrible strategy, and you will waste a lot of energy doing it, and you will not get the results. So it's like fishing, right? If you look at all the fish in the ocean, say we want to go after all of these fish, you will probably not get any fish and you'll die of exhaustion. But if you're strategic and saying, boss, those 3 fish over there, those I'm going to get. So you target those 3 fish, you chase those 3 fish all day long. Your probability of capturing those 3 fish is very, very high. So I use the same analogy for conversion optimization. There is a group of people that are already converting on your website, whether that's 2%, 3%, 4%, who cares? These are people who came to the website and were sold on whatever it is you were selling, whether it's a pair of running shoes or whatever. They saw it and they said, boss, whatever you're explaining over here totally makes sense to us. Here's my credit card. Where do I pay? Right? Those people are already converting. Then you have this big group of 97% of people that don't buy. And what I'm arguing is that there is another group within that 97%. And these are people that, if you look at conversions as being concentric circles, right in the center are people that purchased. Right next to them are healthy skeptics. These are people that came close to buying. They came pretty close to the conversion point, but they just didn't have enough energy to get there. And I always look at marketing as being energy efficiency. Like, my job as a marketer is to extract as much efficiency as I can. So going after cold traffic is less interesting to me than it is to kind of figuring out like what held back people that were so close to buying. So that group, which is right outside the people that are converting, are called healthy skeptics. Now, they have 4 qualities. The first one is they recognize they have a problem. This is fundamental. You cannot convert someone if they don't even recognize they have a problem. You can convert them by giving a massive discount, but that's not the game I think they should play. The second one is they value expertise. There are some people that simply do not believe that anybody knows anything more about a topic than them. When I go to my doctor, I don't argue with my doctor. I consider, I respect my doctor, and I know my doctor knows a lot about that specific thing he's talking about or she's talking about. I listen to them. So how do we position ourselves as experts? This is why I meant when I said demonstration of expertise is very important. The third one is that they're willing to spend money to solve their problem. This is very important. If the consumer is not willing to spend money, then there's something I can do. And then the final one is they need more convincing. So those are the 4 qualities of a healthy skeptic. And I think that if brands forget about everything else on their website, forget even about people that are buying, forget them, and forget about everyone and just focus in on healthy skeptics and just ask yourself, okay, knowing that these 4 qualities that I've just heard about healthy skeptics, how can I reframe my sales pitch? By the way, it's very important to understand, on the product page, when we talk about the components of the product page, we say we have the product image on the left, we have the add to cart area on the right. Below that, we have the product description. Below that, we have the customer reviews. That's the typical template of a product page. That term product description is doing a great disservice to you because it is not a product description. It is the sales pitch. The purpose of the product page is not to describe your product. It is to sell your product. There's a big difference here. And so it's very important for the entrepreneur or for the marketer to understand what it is that we're trying to do. Don't look at the product description as being a description. Look at the product description as being a sales pitch. And if you think about it from that perspective, it'll really change your thinking. So now that we know it's a sales pitch and we know that healthy skeptics really matter, and we know that there are these 4 components of those healthy skeptics, now you have to ask yourself, how do I adjust and rewrite my sales pitch so it is really talking to that healthy skeptic? So one of the things that a healthy skeptic does is they'll always, how like children, children is a great example, right? So when a child, I don't know if you have kids, but I don't have kids myself, but I was a child and you were a child. I'm sure you remember in school, even raising your hand up and asking the teacher, teacher, can you please explain to me this? I don't understand this, right? That's exactly what a healthy skeptic does. The word healthy skeptic we chose with a lot of thought because we don't like the word skeptic, because the skeptic is someone who just says no to everything. We like the word healthy skeptic because this person is, like there are some students in class that are asking questions for the sake of asking questions. Everyone hates them. But there are other students who are genuinely asking questions because they're genuinely curious. Not because they're trying to irritate the teacher or not because they're trying to show off to their friends, but they're like, hey, I really like this mathematical equation you explained, but what happens in this scenario? And it's very important for us to help those people out, because it's something that the marketers should already be able to do. So my point is that the simplest model to think about this is, again, going back to running shoes. If you are saying something like, these running shoes are really comfortable and don't cause your feet to hurt after a run, ask yourself, what kind of questions would a healthy skeptic have? Well, one of the questions a healthy skeptic would have is that, how is that possible? How did you achieve this goal? Right? Another question they could have is that, what running conditions are you talking about? Are you talking about a 20-minute run, or are you talking about a 45-minute run? So all of these questions are floating in their mind. This is what a healthy skeptic would do. The problem is, I'll ask you this question. Imagine a customer comes to a product page and reads the whole description. And by the end of the description, they still have these questions that are in their mind, which haven't been answered. What do you think is going to happen?
Definitely, they're going to end up without buying, or maybe they're still confused, or they're not sure whether to buy this product now, or maybe they're still looking for answers. Maybe they end up closing the tab and going to another store looking for answers, right?
Exactly, 100% correct. So that is what I'm asking marketers to do, is that anytime you are making a claim, anytime you are saying that my product does something, which you are saying that other people haven't been able to do, right? I mean, because the whole reason, if the answer is that the material we are using for our running shoes is exactly the same as what everyone else is using, then why the hell would I pay a premium for you, right? The only reason I'm paying a premium for you is because you have something that other people don't have. But the thing is that to just simply say that you have something that other people don't have is not satisfying to a healthy skeptic. You have to explain, how is it possible that you have something that no one else has? Imagine if you had a friend called you tomorrow, Emil, and said, hey, Emil, I just found a gold brick in my house. It's there, your first question will be like, how the hell did you find it? How do you have access to gold brick when no one else has access? So my point is that he has to explain to you, if he wants you to come and look at the gold brick, if he wants you to believe him, he's going to have to explain, boss, how did you get access to this gold brick? So he's you are a healthy skeptic, and we are all healthy skeptics. This is one thing I'll mention over here. Healthy skepticism is an evolutionary trait human beings developed 140,000 years ago. So what used to happen 140,000 years ago was, when we were in Africa, we would be walking, and the whole tribe would be walking, and you would see a new plant. You've never seen this plant before. It's got these red colored berries. Okay. You're like, oh, this looks really juicy and delicious. Now, if you lacked healthy skepticism, you would say, I'm going to pluck this and I'm going to eat it. And then you would quickly die. Right. So your genes would never get transferred on, because nature would say, boss, this guy does not deserve to live. He's too dangerous. The person who looks at berry says, I'm very tempted to eat this berry, but I've never seen this berry before. And he says, boss, calls his whole tribe and says, what is this? Does anyone else know what this is? And one of the people in the tribe says, oh yeah, I've had this before, and plucks it and eats it. That is a healthy it is a survival mechanism. Right? So what has happened is that as genes, and this is really, you have to look at it from the lens of 140,000 years ago, the only people that survived were people that had some degree of skepticism about whether we should hunt over here, whether this plant is safe, should I trust this person? These are all survival questions. And people who were skeptical were a little more cautious, which means they didn't die. And because they didn't die, they were able to have children and pass on their genes. So if this cycle repeats itself 20,000 times, eventually the entire world is full of skeptics, healthy skeptics, right? So it's a so we all have that quality. You have it, I have it, every marketer listening to this podcast has it. So just appreciate the fact that the person you're trying to persuade has that same anxiety and skepticism, and ask yourself, how would I frame my story in light of that point? That's all.
Got it. So do you think, maybe I would like to put it in this way. Do you think conversion rate optimization is a pure gameplay of both psychology and copywriting? What do you think? If I combine it, what is your standpoint on this particular concept?
It is 1,000% all about buyer psychology and copywriting. 100%. That is the key takeaway. And I would recommend for anyone who's listening to this podcast and anyone who's listening to this session, I would recommend that read books that were written 100 years ago. One of the
Mm-hmm.
best signals to know what book to read is to look for books that were created 100 years ago that are still being published today. Why would a
Mm-hmm.
publisher continue publishing a book, right? They would only publish it because the values are still true.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of looking at marketing books that came out 2 years ago, focus on marketing books that were written 100 years ago. And I happen to own, and I'll just see if I can point this red
Sure.
thing. Of course, people who are listening will not see it, but it is a reprint of a 125-year-old Sears catalog.
Wow.
And the kind of copywriting that they have in this book is just genius. When you think about good work, always is the outcome of incredible odds. My point
Mm-hmm.
here is that the harder it is to do something, the better the work. So 125 years ago, Sears, which is a company in Chicago, was sending these catalogs to small towns in America. These people that they were talking to, sending the catalogs to, they had never been to Chicago. They'd never been to a big city like Chicago. And the sales pitch was, we are going to show you a drawing. Because remember, 125 years ago, commercial photography did not exist. So they would actually
Correct.
literally have a drawing. Can you imagine
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell running shoes with a drawing of a shoe? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were selling, many hundreds of products, they didn't have real estate. So the font size they were using was size 4. So you have to literally really pay attention to it. But the thing is that the sales pitch was that you have never heard of us, you've never bought from
Mm-hmm.
us. We want you to send money upfront. In 3 weeks, we will send you up. In 3 weeks, you will in the mail you will receive the product you've bought. That's a very
Mm-hmm.
difficult sales pitch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they had to become masters of persuasion and copywriting. Today, technology has allowed us to become lazy, where we can
Mm-hmm.
figure out lots of clever hacks to get customers. But as you look at regulation and you look at Facebook ad costs, they are going up. Regulation is going
Yes.
up. Tracking users is becoming more of a challenge. This means that the classic principles of direct response marketing are going to become the gold standards again. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say anybody who is in CRO who is not a master of copywriting, you're actually leaving dollars on the table. So the
Got it.
name of the game is conversion copywriting. This is the term we use, conversion
Mm-hmm.
copywriting.
Great, great. I think that's a very well said point. Because I feel a lot of right now, even I feel the same. Like Facebook is Facebook or Google. Okay, let me take Facebook alone. Facebook is not like how it was like 5 or 7 years back. It's completely changed. Even today, what happens is even like let's say 3 or 4 years back, we had to find out the relevant target audience or the interest where you need to run ads for. And over there were no much importance given to ad creatives, right? But today, what's happening is, even if you're targeting a broad audience, like you say, like you're not targeting any age limit, you're not keeping any age limit, you're not targeting anybody, you've not kept any sort of interest. Just if you're able to uh, talk to the customer in his standpoint, or in his tone, or in his the way he where you're trying to solve his pain point through just the creative, the conversion rates are getting really high. And that's something that I've experimented, and it's worked out really well. And like I think, even with respect to the nowadays, even apart from creative ads, today UGC content is working out really well, because when customers talk about the experience, about their entire product journey, and how the product has helped them to achieve some sort of level, that creates a more, again, that's also a sort of copywriting hack, I would say, where you're pushing the customer in front of the your target audience. And if and humans are like this. Even when you go to Amazon, uh, the first time, I mean, let's say you want to buy a product, the first section that they go is to the review section. So even before looking at the product, they go to the review section just to see if there are any negative points, right?
That's true.
And based on that is when people make buying decisions. Again, that's again a psychological behavior. I've seen a lot, even like myself. I first look at the reviews. How many stars do they have? Do they have any negative points? If that negative is way too high, then I skip to the next product, right? So
And
that's
that's a
something.
you bring up a really good point. The fact that you yourself and other consumers are moving to reviews is a sign of skepticism. That's what it is. That's the so the marketer who understands that these people are skeptical, and your sales pitch, you're right. Some people will move to the reviews and they'll see the reviews and they'll leave right away. That's fine. You can't help that. But some people will read the reviews, but they'll still come back and read your description. And if your description acknowledges that skepticism, then, one of the techniques that we like to use is that for supplements, supplements are a product category, health supplements, where brands have made lots of bad promises and customers have not seen benefits. So usually if you're selling a supplement, the person on this product page is someone who's tried many supplements before and has had no results. So high degree of skepticism. And we like to use copy that says something like, there are many supplement brands out there, and many of them don't work well. When you say that, you are acknowledging the skepticism. Now you can write your sales pitch. So it's not like it's not like a magic bullet, but it's just a little kind of thing that you can use to start a conversation.
Understood. Awesome. I have a very curious thing to ask you. So as you have worked with a lot of brands, right? What is that one? So is there a very special case study that you have where you want to share with the audience, saying that this is how the brand was? And see, eventually, CRO is all about bringing in growth and bringing in more revenue. So so there are multiple different levers that you can push in order to get that particular brand to a particular stage, right? So is there any? I would like to know that entire story. What exactly happened? What brand or what niche are they into? And what are the things that you did in order for the project to be very successful? So is there any case studies where you have specifically with respect to e-commerce stores?
I think there are a lot of case studies that I can talk about. They're for different categories, but all of them are dealing with the same type of problem, which is how do we communicate with a healthy skeptic. So I'll give you a few examples. So
sure.
one of the brands that I've worked with is a men's skincare brand called Tiege, Tiege. And one of the challenges for them was that when you are selling a skincare brand, they actually have a routine, in the sense that you buy the package and then you're supposed to, like, every couple of days wash your face. Like, it's 5 or 6 different products and you have to use them together to actually get the skin benefits. And you have to continue doing it for a long time, for a couple of weeks, to actually get to notice the differences. And so the problem was that there is a fair degree of skepticism here. You're asking someone to really commit to something, And so what we did was, on the product page, we added a call to action at multiple locations. We do something called a conditional call to action. And what that means is that we place a button. And if someone one of the problems with e-commerce is that people are distracted. So marketers make this mistake of saying, okay, if you want to draw attention to something, we'll mention it at this part of the funnel or this part of the page. The thing is that most people will still ignore it, not because they don't care about it, but because they're just distracted. Like you said, when you went to Amazon, you scrolled immediately to reviews. So you ignored everything that's on the page. So all of those call to actions were missed by you. So the same thing happens for shoppers. So what we do is we actually mention that link 4 or 5 times on the page. Now you might say, Rishi, that's too much. But what we do is we do it conditionally. What that means is that the moment you click on any one of the links, we hide the remaining 4 links. Wow. So it maximizes visibility while minimizing repetition. The user doesn't know that there are 4 links, because the moment they click on it, everything else is invisible. But that link that we did for Tiege was focused on, we thought to ourselves, what can we use as a lever to communicate with these healthy skeptics? And we realized that the lever we should use is the science of skincare, because people trust scientists. Science is a very simple black and white thing, so it's not opinion. So we added this call to action in multiple locations. When you click on it, we show a sales pitch, and so it's only shown to people. So this is one of the other things about how to talk to healthy skeptics. We don't want to assume everybody's a healthy skeptic, because now you are going to make the sales pitch very kind of frustrating for people. Remember, for Tiege, they were already getting like 4 or 5% of people that were buying their product. So they don't need, we don't want to distract those people. So the idea is that you add call to action, you add links on the page that when you click on, they show a pop-up. And in that pop-up, you can kind of explain, what is you can talk to those healthy skeptics. And so that's one example. And we were able to improve their conversion rates for that page by 20%, 19.5%.
Wow.
And so by simply, we didn't change the design of the page, we didn't change the targeting of the ad, right? We didn't change our price point, we didn't make any promos. We simply talked to healthy skeptics and were able to improve conversion rates by 19.6%, or
That's great.
19.5%. Another example is for a golf brand called Sticks. Now they sell these beautiful golf clubs that are they sell these beautiful golf clubs for a very attractive price point, but they're still somewhat expensive for many shoppers. So the challenge was that, okay, how do we communicate this to the buyer that we are a really good deal? Because compared to like the high-end golf clubs, it's a really good deal, but it's still expensive, right? It's not, it's an expensive purchase. And golf is not an impulse buy. People who are buying those golf clubs will be using them every day while they're playing golf. So it's not something that, it's a high risk purchase. So again, we did the same thing for them, where on the product page, and both of these case studies are on my website. I have 18 case studies that anyone can read. But on their product page, we again did the same thing. We had a link that said, here's why we're different. Because that was the question that the healthy skeptic had. When we clicked on it, we showed a pop-up and we explained to them exactly what made us the best in the world. And in their case, conversion rates went up by 26%. So, these are big jumps in conversion rates, and we ran these experiments multiple times to verify these numbers. So these are two case studies that I can certainly share.
That's amazing. Like I think that's like a really good case study that I've got to know. Like, and the conversion rate numbers are really good. I think not many stores have these kind of conversion rates. Like whenever I audit any sort of e-commerce store, right, the maximum conversion rate that I've seen for any store is a maximum of 4%. And I think there are from this, I think a lot of people also will be able to understand the value of CRO and also know like where exactly they need to make the required changes. And it's not necessary to make changes to all the different elements in the product page, but it's all about moving that one lever to make a bigger impact. And
yeah, and just to be clear, I'm talking here about the lifts in the conversion rate. So we're not saying that conversion rate become 26%. We're saying if it was 26% higher, which is a big deal for the brand.
Got it. Awesome. I think that's a really good number. But so again, I have another curious question. What do you think is the future of conversion rate optimization? What do you think are the current trends or maybe developments that a particular e-commerce store should be aware of, specifically when they are trying to optimize their conversion rates to a better number? What do you think they should really focus on doing?
Yeah. So again, I think the things that we talked about are the things that I would like us to I would like brands to kind of focus on, which is that identify the tips of your spear. Don't assume everything is equally important. Be aware of the fact that there is a lot of like changes happening in the marketplace where tracking outside your website are going to be out of your control. And so focus on things that are happening on the website itself. And I would say the thing to focus on is to figure out a way to communicate with healthy skeptics. Like just ask yourself, how would I talk to healthy skeptics? It's not about I can give hundreds of ideas for them to think about, but I think I want the purpose of the show to be to really help them focus in on a few core ideas. And to me, I can tell you for a fact that healthy skeptics will 10x your revenue if you can focus on that. So if that's attractive to you, just focus on that group and you'll be very impressed.
Great. Awesome. I think before we come to an end of this particular episode, Rishi, I want you to also maybe share some of your advice for budding marketers or budding e-commerce owners. Like what your piece of advice? It could be, maybe you could share like few advices, or is it's completely okay even if you can share like one piece of advice that they could take at this end of this episode.
I would say, my favorite book on copywriting is the one that's on my bookshelf. It's called Ad Week the ad week copywriting handbook. I would ask them to go to Amazon and search for it. It's a classic book that was written 1960s by a person known as Joseph Sugarman. I'm an engineer, so I'm not a traditional copywriter. So, I had to learn these techniques. And so when I read that book, it really changed my mindset. I would request any young marketer to invest in education. And I would say copywriting is going to be a very important tool. Copywriting is not just words on the screen. Even if you're making video content, the script of that video content is copywriting. Copywriting is basically strategy. So I would say really double down on that stuff, and I think you'll get some really good results.
Awesome. I think this was indeed a very insightful show, and I think there was indeed a lot of value that Rishi has shared. And thank you so much, Rishi, for spending, I think it's already become an hour for this episode. And thank you so much for being here. And I just loved the entire episode. And there was a lot of things for me to also take back to my team and say, these are the things that we definitely need to invest into CRO, and let's get our e-commerce clients conversion rates up. Thank you so much, Rishi. And I think, definitely we'll stay connected. And I hope all the audiences who are listening to this particular episode are gonna have a better perspective with respect to CRO and have a really good direction. I think they definitely would get a clear direction on how they need to work with conversion rate optimization.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.